Please rise for silent invocation, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Will the clerk call the roll?
Present.
Here.
Here.
Here. Here. I was just looking around to make sure everybody had their mics closed because I've been asked to make sure that everybody at home on TV can hear us, and it looks like everybody's mics are in shouting distance of us, so that's good. Before we get into the, I need an approval for the agenda for the evening.
Move to approve the agenda as distributed.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
None opposed? We have an agenda for the evening, which leads us to item 4 on that agenda, award ceremony for the police department. Chief Tom Grimaldi, if you would.
Thank you, Mayor, City Council, residents. I have two awards tonight. One is a unit citation for our Criminal Investigation Division, and one is specifically an award of achievement for Officer Paul Bigelow. If I could have Officer Paul Bigelow and all of the detectives, I'm not going to name each one, and all the detectives come on down in front here, please. And because, Mayor, because this is the same incident that these officers are being awarded, I'm going to try to combine both of them into one here because it's all one incident. Excuse me. On June 10th, 2020, Port Orange Police Officer Paul Bigelow responded to Global Health Research and Technologies, Inc., which is located at 413 Oak Place in Port Orange. His response was in regard to a reported burglary of the business. Officer Paul Bigelow conducted an extensive investigation in which he was able to identify multiple suspects, and through his thorough on-scene investigation, this occurred. Because of the size of the crime, we called in our detective division. And based on that information, based on the information that Officer Bigelow was able to develop, coupled with the monetary amount of the reported stolen items, which, by the way, was between $750,000 to $1.1 million, our CID was mobilized and they came out. So Detective Ben Benazet responded to the scene immediately and was assigned the investigation as the lead investigator. Through additional investigation, Detective Benazet was able to obtain positive identification of all the suspects and also learned that they have utilized a Penske rental 26-foot box truck during their commission of the crime. Detective William Rhodes and Detective Kelsey Hyam assisted in the collection of evidence, which included witness statements, surveillance footage, and latent fingerprints. Intelligence was obtained through all the detectives, and particularly Detectives Lamarand and Portillo, leading detectives to believe the suspects, along with the stolen property, were traveling to the state of New Mexico. Based upon this information and collected, and the question of this possibility being a civil versus a criminal matter, the detectives worked, including Detective Mike Wallace, worked to able to determine that it was indeed a criminal case. Based on that, Detective Benazet was later able to physically track and locate the suspects in Tyler, Texas. Detective Sergeant Nagy was able to coordinate with the Texas Department of Public Safety, Texas Department of Public Safety Communications, Smith County Sheriff's Department, and the Texas Rangers, who were able to apprehend the suspects along with all the stolen property there in Tyler, Texas. Detective Benazet, Detective Hyam prepared criminal charges on all the suspects. By the way, they were additionally charged in Texas as well. Through the combined investigations and teamwork of our detectives, Detective Sergeant Nagy, Detective Benazet, Detective Rhodes, Detective Hyam, Detective Lamarand, Detective Portillo, Detective Kenny, and Detective Wallace, this case was successfully resolved and the business was able to regain all of their property, guarantee their continued operation here in Port Orange, And without their tireless effort, we would not have achieved that success without a timely resolution of this case. And it all started with Officer Paul Bigelow going out there and really developing it from the get-go. So congratulations to all, and thank you. And then, yes, what the detectives? We'll have each of them up. Thank you for your time, Mayor and Council. And again, this is just one example, as you know, of the many great things that our officers do. This case would have been big for any police department of any size. It was a huge, huge case, a huge undertaking, working with many different agencies and coordinating those efforts. I am very proud. You know, we consider ourselves a medium-sized agency. I tell you what, our officers put them up against anybody, any size agency. What a phenomenal job to do to regain that 1.1 million to a local business, by the way, which, you know, that could potentially bankrupt them. So
Sure.
great job, gentlemen, and ladies, because Kelsey unfortunately couldn't make it, but great job all around. Thank you much.
Appreciate it. Gentlemen, don't escape just so soon. If you guys could,
You're coming back.
could you all come back, line up right here? And I apologize. We have this thing called a pandemic. Usually council would be the first to be down there with you. But I wanted each of us, even though that we're not down there to shake your hands, give high fives. I say the 3 H's: hugs, handshakes, high fives are out during the pandemic. But before you leave, I want to, even though we're not going to physically shake your hand, you're going to get our words, because we're politicians and we're good at speaking. So, Marilyn, you get to lead us.
Okay, then I'll be brief. I just want to congratulate you, and certainly I think your efforts are testimony to the fact that success is probably 95% hard work. You know, a little bit of luck in there, but your hard work paid off for our local business, our community, and I'm very proud of you. Thank you.
Chase?
Yeah, you know, I said it a couple months ago, and I still feel the same way. Next to our military men and women, we're fortunate to be here with a lot of them tonight. Next to those folks, you guys are the heroes of this country, and it's for reasons like this. Mr. Bigelow and I grew up together playing at that basketball gym over there. You think he can shoot a gun? Get him out on the court. He's got a heck of a hook shot that I never did beat when I was younger. So thank you guys for your service.
He admitted it.
I did?
Publicly. Drew?
Certainly hard work is part of it, but the dedication, the determination, and a good attitude is also part of it. And I just want you guys to know, as a department, as individuals, I appreciate what you do on a daily basis. Probably don't say it enough, but the support is there and the appreciation is there. Outstanding job, outstanding work.
Scott?
Echo that. Great job. Ironically, I was just talking with a young gentleman earlier today who has aspirations to get into law enforcement. And one of the things I said, he said, what makes a really good police officer? I said, teamwork. People, a lot of times, in my opinion, folks that come out of areas where they've played team sports and been in team environments, they do really good. They make great law enforcement professionals. Classic example right here of folks that can function individually but also excel as a team, and great job. Just a fabulous job, so congrats.
You know, Scott, I was thinking about some words my dad told me when I was small. He said, the harder I work, the luckier I get. And it's true. I mean, it does take a little bit of luck to crack something this big, but the harder you work, the luckier you get. And certainly in this case, and in this instance, that certainly played out. But I just want to say something beyond just my gratitude for this. There's a lot going on in our country right now, both good and bad, all at the same time. And right now, what this community is seeing is the very best of the profession nationally, right here in front of us in our community and in our city. And the men and women of this department those watching and listening, they have your backs, whether you know it or not, whether you want it or not. Doesn't matter. They have your backs. And if I don't care if it's just in passing in a trip to Wawa, when somebody's getting a cup of coffee, stop. Our officers, they'll talk to you, they'll engage you, because they are very community minded. But when you do that, thank them. Let them know how you feel, because there are a lot of people that feel what I'm saying right now, but they keep it to themselves. Take the time. It's okay. Thank these people. I think it's just as important right now. There's as many challenges in policing as there's ever been that I've seen in my lifetime. And I don't need to tell you guys, you live it every day, but I'm telling our community that. Our community needs to know, without question, the men and women of this department, they have your back. And thank you very much for the job that you do for us.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. It is one of the duties of a mayor to read and make proclamations from time to time of great and small importance. And this is one of the ones that is near and dear to my heart. It's funny that the Purple Heart City proclamation follows not very long after Veterans Day. And we had a very COVID-friendly, COVID-sensitive event to honor our veterans last week in the city. And I said at that event, and I'm going to kind of echo what I said there, we have red states, we have blue states, it doesn't matter. We have red, white, and blue states. These people go out and give their blood and their livelihood to defend our nation and to defend our freedom, whether we want them to or not, whether we recognize them or not, whether you appreciate them or not. They've answered a call, and we owe them a gratitude and a debt that we can never repay. And this proclamation is just one small measure, but it goes a long way. The Purple Heart is one of our oldest recognized medals in our military, and it's just a very simple thing. But that very simple thing is a very huge symbol of sacrifice that we can never forget. And it is my absolute honor to read this proclamation. Whereas the city of Port Orange, Florida, and our community have the utmost gratitude for all the men and women who have and are selflessly serving their country in the armed forces, and whereas the contributions and sacrifices of the men and women who serve the armed forces have been vital in maintaining the freedoms and way of life enjoyed by our citizens, and whereas the Purple Heart is the oldest military decoration in use today, which evolved from the badge of the military merit created by General George Washington for the common soldier in 1782. And whereas the Purple Heart is awarded to members of the United States Armed Forces that have been wounded or killed in combat with a declared enemy of the United States of America, and whereas Port Orange appreciates the sacrifices of our Purple Heart recipients have made in defending our freedoms, and believe it is important that we acknowledge them for their courage and show them the support they have earned. Now, therefore, I, Donald O. Burnett, Mayor of the City of Port Orange, Florida, on behalf of the City Council, do hereby proclaim that the City of Port Orange is a Purple Heart City, and urge all citizens to join in this expression of our appreciation to all veterans in our community who have given so much on our behalf. And with my signature and the seal of the city, it is so declared on this day and in this place.
Mayor, Mr. Mayor, thank you for having us here, and thank Councilwoman Marilyn Ford for bringing to the council's attention. Really appreciate that. I'd like to read this plaque that I have for you. The Military Order of the Purple Heart Special Recognition Award is bestowed with pride to the City of Port Orange, Florida, for your dedication and support honoring America's combat wounded veterans becoming the Purple Heart City. presented by the Patriot members of Volusia County Chapter 316, Military Order of the Purple Heart, USA.
Mayor, probably give him that proclamation. Yeah.
All you guys, Marines and Purple Heart members, please come up.
No, that's fine. I just want to make sure that I look everybody in. Before we take this picture, I just want to make sure I look each and every one of you in the eye, because I think it's important to say thank you.
These are all combat wounded veterans.
Incredible. Thank you.
Thank you. God bless you. Hey, Joe.
It truly does start at home. No, that's what it's all about.
Did he get everybody?
Okay, Christine. How many cameras you got, Jay? Oh, here we go. Yeah.
Yes, it is.
No, this is going right below my name on the podium right
I
there.
would like to give all the council members this. Wear it proudly, please.
Absolutely.
Sir, service.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much.
Welcome home, sir.
I can't.
I'll get burned if I did. I just know it.
Thank you so much, Commander.
Thank you for this.
Can I get a picture of kind of like in the middle so I can get on our
Yeah,
page?
yeah.
Thank you so much.
Come on, Stacy.
I gotta get everyone in there, it's gonna hard.
Oh,
We don't have the best photo op chamber, and I'll work on that.
By the way,
Oh, Commander,
Council, for those
come
of you
on.
who don't know, there's the newest city commissioner from the city of Daytona Beach, Stacy Cantu.
Stacy, welcome.
I think I was on the outside.
That's gonna go, man.
That's all right, man. That's all right.
Going right there.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your
See you
service.
today. May I?
Oh, absolutely.
Stacy, are you able to stay a moment?
1 minute.
Okay.
Public comments on consent agenda items only. Anyone care to comment on consent agenda items? With that, may I have approval for the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion second for approval of the items on consent, which includes several resolutions. Call the roll.
Councilmember Ford.
Yes.
Councilmember Tremont.
Yes.
Councilmember Stover.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Pat.
Yes.
Mayor Burnett.
Yes, 5-0. Brings us to citizen participation non-agended. I don't believe we had any. So that brings us to
Yeah,
count,
they're all- The ones that I gave you are.
they're all for that item 19 I saw. So we'll get them on item 19.
Okay.
So that brings us to council comments. Scott, why don't you open?
Yeah, Mayor, if it's okay with the rest of the council, there's a couple of folks here in attendance tonight that I'd like to have come forth and kind of introduce themselves. They're newly elected officials at neighboring cities, and so we've got a unique opportunity tonight. So,
Absolutely.
Stacy, would you mind coming up first?
You didn't know
Congratulations.
You know you're gonna get grilled.
Hopefully you've prepared a really good, no, just a little bit about who you are, and we just want to say congratulations
Okay.
Um,
as well.
My name is Stacy Cantu. I've lived in Daytona Beach for 42 years. I have 5 children, 13 grandchildren. I love the city of Daytona Beach, and I look forward to working with everyone in the other cities and my commissioners and mayor of Daytona.
Excellent.
So,
Thanks for coming out.
I wasn't prepared for this.
You did well. You did
Thank
well.
you, Stacy.
Plenty of opportunities for public speaking now, right?
Yeah, you get used to it, right?
Thank you.
And Mayor and Council, we also have tonight, we have Eric Sander, newly elected South Daytona
Saw him in the
City
corner.
Councilman, seat
Oh,
4.
Okay.
He didn't pay for the premium seats, so he was going to.
Sure.
Good evening. Nice to meet you all. I'm Eric Sander, newly elected council, seat 4, South Daytona, and I'm happy to represent my city. I love my city, and I just wanted to serve it and do all I can to keep progress going and things going on in a good direction in South Daytona. I grew up in this area. I'm born and raised here, and I just love my little town and fishing on the river and things like that. I look forward to seeing you in future endeavors and joint efforts between our two cities. Nice to meet you.
You too,
Thanks for
sir.
coming out, Eric.
Congrats.
We look forward to having you here anytime.
Scott, what else you got?
That's all I got tonight.
That's good stuff.
Yeah.
Drew?
I don't have anything tonight.
Okay.
I'm good.
Chase?
I don't have anything either, Mayor.
Marilyn?
I don't have anything. Other than happy Thanksgiving a week
That's
early.
coming up, yes.
Well, I was going to mention that along with just a reminder for everybody on Thanksgiving. This always happens. I'll get all those questions that are ever so important about Thanksgiving. When is my trash going to be picked up? So you can always go to Port Orange City Hall Facebook page and get an update. It's already posted. But anybody who has regular trash service on Thursday, just like in past years, that will occur on Saturday. So you don't have to, you can sleep in on Thanksgiving. You don't have to worry about getting your trash to the curb early and missing out, because if you do, it's going to sit there for 2 more days. So just want to remind everybody about that. And Jake, if you could do me a favor, I know that the adaptive signaling project's going on. If you could just get council an update, I'd like to know the status of that and how we're progressing with that.
I will get that for you.
Okay. And that's all I had. Board appointments, interviews, and reports. Citizens Advisory Committee, the TPO, Mr. Bobby Ball.
Can I take this off?
Absolutely.
Bobby Ball, CAC for the TPO. We had our monthly meeting today. Actually, the first time some of us were in person, so it was kind of a little different, a little awkward too, because the chair was actually not in person, so it made it a little bit interesting for the dialogue, but that's okay. Pretty typical meeting, a lot of little things about policies and procedures and things, but the 2 things I want to mention to you was we added the I-95 right-of-way funding into the TIP, so that's going to continue that piece of the pie, the puzzle. And then the other one was the priority application process. We have the application deadline is in February, which we work with Tim a lot, and he knows that. He knows the dates, and he knows it's coming. So, and then when those projects come in, that's when we start the ranking process and things like that. So, with that, that's really all I have, other than at some point I want to ask you guys if I'm serving you the way you would want to be served, because at this point I just come and give you little tidbits and not everything, but I feel like if you want more or less, then you can tell me if you want more or less. But
You got more time?
depends on who you ask in my family.
You better clear that with your wife.
Right? So anyway, with that said, I can keep doing what I do or change however you'd like me to change.
I'm good.
All right.
I like the way that you can compile a 3-hour meeting into 45 seconds, so you probably wish the 3-hour meeting lasted just that
They've gotten
amount.
pretty good. They put us before the TCC, so now we're limited to an hour and 15 minutes no matter
Okay.
what. So
There you go.
anyway.
Anything,
All right.
anything else for Bobby?
The only thing I would say, Bobby, is and you do a fabulous job of being here very frequently, so you're always very approachable. And I know if I have a question, I call you. You're great on getting back to us. Likewise, through the course of some of the things that you're doing, especially as they pertain to Port Orange, if you feel like, hey, there's some opportunities where the elected officials maybe should make a phone call to a certain person, or you know what
Fair
I'm saying,
enough.
and kind of
Yeah.
touch base with some things. If that helps us along in your judgment on some of these things, don't ever hesitate to let us know, because we're always happy to do that. So
Can do. I usually go through Jake, but I
Yep.
can
Yeah.
go through you guys directly for
Yep,
sure.
absolutely.
Sounds good.
Thanks,
Good
Bobby.
deal,
Thank you.
Bobby.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bobby. Brings us to the regular agenda portion of the meeting. Item 17 is the first reading of ordinance number 2020-38, the adequate shelter and anti-tethering ordinance. Ordinance number 2020-38 is an ordinance of the City of Port Orange, Volusia County, Florida, amending Chapter 10, Section 10-3 Code of Ordinances to add definitions for adequate food, adequate water, adequate shelter, and amending Chapter 10 to add regulations related to tethering dogs or cats to stationary objects while outdoors, providing for codification, providing for repeal of conflicting ordinances, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date.
Move to approve ordinance number 2020-38.
Second. We have a motion, proper second. The item's open on the floor for discussion. This was council's request, Jake, after we had a little visit about a month or so ago. Appreciate you guys bringing this forward so that we can get this done. Is there anything else along the lines of information that we need?
I don't think so, sir. I think this is self-explanatory. I think Matt and Chief worked with Tom Aiken, was it, on it, and should be good to go.
Okay, great. Council comments or questions?
Mayor, is this something that, like for educational purposes, does it require a press release so people, because I know there are people that tether their dogs and things have changed. So is this something we're going to educate or press release possibly?
I think you're probably onto something. It doesn't do a whole lot of good if we don't let people know
Yeah.
where we stand on it.
Just curious.
Chief?
Mayor, Chief Grimaldi, yes, we
Okay.
will do that. That is part of the package, so to speak. So our plans are to do that once this goes through both readings, and then we will, through our social media, through our regular newspapers, we will try to educate as many people as possible.
Very
And then our ACOs, we actually want to have flyers that we can just kind of hand out, actually. So
Within
some kind of
that.
education
Okay.
process.
Very good. Sounds
Very
good. Thank you, Chief.
Scott, you got anything?
No.
Would anyone here care to speak to the item? There being none, back to council. Final comments or questions? There being none, call the roll.
Councilmember Ford.
Yes.
Councilmember Tremont.
Yes.
Councilmember Stiltner.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Bashir.
Yes.
Mayor Burnett.
Yes. 5-0. Brings us to item 18, approval of the amended YMC waiver and deferral letter. The recommended motions to approve the amended waiver the amended waiver and deferral letter. May I have such motion?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion on the floor and a proper second. The item's open on the floor for discussion. Mr. Rosen.
Mayor, Council, Alan Rosen, Assistant City Manager. So since we were here the last time in October, we've been working diligently with our people and YMCA to go over, take a look at the building and redo kind of the capital planning of that building. Last time we did it was when we had the, when we approved the 10-year agreement like 4 years ago. So I really wanted to make sure that we had the right numbers and that we knew what we could afford without going back to the general fund before we really came forward. I just got those numbers today. It's not that we were, delayed in trying to get them. It just took us that long to really analyze it and figure out what we really need to do to that building. So to be fair to the YMCA, the recommendation that I had would be to have this discussion, approve a little bit of an extension of the deferral instead of no rent for December, 50% rent for December, and then come back December 15th with some recommendations and ideas for the council to see how they wanted to move forward. But it would be kind of the same thing as you see before you now, where if we can't come to an agreement by the end of December, all the past rent would be due. Or we accept some sort of negotiated rent for the long term, we do that, or other options. So the recommendation tonight is to just move the deferral, move the final decision to December 15th and come back at that meeting and decide then how we want to do the long term. But I just got the numbers today. I just didn't have time to really give you a full analysis.
Okay. Marilyn, why don't you start?
Well, I guess I would say we need an agreement by January 2021. Whether it's the 1st of January or the 30th, I don't care. If we don't have something, they need to pay us all, and I'm unwilling to extend anything. So essentially that means I'm willing to, defer a decision until December 15th. Or in my mind, given the Thanksgiving holiday and things, if it needs to go to the first or second meeting in January, I'm also okay with that. But the end of January 2021 is my cutoff point.
Okay.
It's either pay up by then or have an agreement that goes forward.
Chase?
No, I'm in agreement. I'm okay with with staff's recommendations right now. I'd like to see a deal made. I can't add anything to what Marilyn said.
Drew?
I'm kind of concerned with a deferral is going to turn into a waiver, and then we're going to be asked to forgive the rent. So, I mean, that's my concern, is that, we don't have an agreement now. We're going to try to get one, and it's going to require a lot of hard work. I get that, but I'm just concerned of the ask, the amount of the ask, and that we would possibly be asked to forgive the entire thing. If with the pandemic and everything going on, if their membership drops or there's another shutdown or whatever, it's going to affect what they're going to ask for.
Right.
And this is difficult for me because I know that the Y has a very terrific history in our city.
I agree.
They offered our residents a lot of things that were not available a long time ago through the private sector that are now. So I'm not unsympathetic to that. I also look at around the country, and we've got a couple of examples here in our town with the Volusia Mall and the Pavilion of what's going on with the pandemic with landlord and lease agreements where businesses are having trouble making ends meet. And so you're, as a landlord, we want to be cognizant of that and help this business succeed. We don't want, but at the same time, I've also seen those landlords like CBL file for bankruptcy because of the issues they have with collecting rent payments right now. What we have with the YMCA is a wonderful jewel of our community, but we already supplement it in so many different ways. We have an agreement with them that basically covers our costs. We're not looking to make a profit off it. So I think, Alan, the hard part is even after you get us to this point, long term, whatever kind of agreement we have, we do need, I want to be cognizant of the effects of COVID, but I also want to be realistic. Do they have a business model that is going to recover? Because we're not looking to make a profit off it, but we are looking to cover our costs. And if we can't do that, I want it, I know Chris is worried about the entire YMCA umbrella, but of course I'm worried about YMCA Port Orange. So as a landlord, if I can help you succeed in Port Orange, I want to do that within the realm of me doing my job, fiscally speaking, and keeping the taxpayers whole. If I can't do that, I can't overextend, I can't do, so Alan, what you're tasked with is making sure that you ask the right questions pertinent to this operation here, so that we come to an agreement, we get what we need, and obviously you've still got a lot of work to do on a business model and figuring that out and the changes that's going to work here. And I don't envy you that challenge, I really don't, but at the same time, I've got to keep the city whole. So, Alan, and that's your balancing act to execute that. Good luck with that impossible mission, but I'm tasking with it anyway.
Thank you.
Kelsey, any other comments or questions?
Yeah, the question on the timelines in the letter and in the agenda summary, 15th is the last time we meet. So shouldn't the deadline be the 15th and not the 31st?
I was talking, I don't know if Matt had a chance to talk with Shannon. I was talking with Shannon about that today. And she was going to get with Matt and kind of talk about what motion we could have if we work with them between now and the 15th and we come up with something, options. We could either have this agreement, we could stay with the current agreement that we have, we can say, you know, we don't see how it's going to work out, you know, let's go ahead and give 18 months notice. Whatever the determination is, we can have a motion. If the motion is to go ahead and amend the contract to authorize the city manager and the city attorney to authorize that contract that you agree to up on the dais, and then we can get it signed before January 1st. That's the idea. Matt? No, he's shaking his head.
No, I think some of the comments here earlier make a lot of sense, having the first meeting of January kind of be that cutoff. So I don't think the YMCA would have any issue with that being kind of the cutoff to have an agreement by that time. Ultimately, if an agreement is not reached, they have until the end of January anyway to make whole the forbearance that we've already done here, basically October, November, and then half of December. So I think that if we target that first meeting in January, we'd be in a good spot.
Which is what date?
So there is no first meeting in January. We're only meeting on currently the proposal to you guys on December 1st is to only have January 17th. Because it's right after the holiday. Y'all can do what you want. It's a proposal coming to you on December 1st.
I do have one more proposal, is that I got the numbers today, I did the analysis. I know what my analysis says. I sent it to finance to make sure I didn't hit a wrong button. You know, I want to make sure it's right. So if you want, if we could add something to the December 1st agenda and then come back the 15th and make a final determination there, if council wishes.
What's the, go ahead, Chris.
On my end, we'll have something about 15. So.
Just do me a favor, Chris. Say your name for the record.
Sorry, Chris Silcott, CEO for YMCA. So we'll have something for the city and for the staff to look at before the 15th, and for you to look at for the 15th.
Okay.
I guarantee that.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Very good.
And that I think that's better. I think getting it, let's figure this out and let's.
Sooner is better than later.
Yeah,
that's
let's
for sure.
get it addressed and figure out what
We
we're
have
gonna
our
do.
budget to deal with.
Great.
So I want to get that done and,
Yes, sir.
and finish.
So is
You
this
got your whole business model to deal with.
Well, I've got that ready to go.
so?
Just a quick,
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
just a
Chase.
quick question as to what's the impact to the general fund, and how does this work? When they pay their rent, does that go into the general fund, or that goes into a maintenance fund for that? Do we have any outstanding projects that are gonna impact the general fund during that you're aware of, that you foresee?
So that was the crux of my analysis. We do have our own separate fund. It's that all it does is account for money that comes in from the YMCA to pay for the maintenance, upkeep of the building. That's our responsibility, and any other administrative services type, you know, because we spend time on it. So there are projects that that's one of the reasons we wanted to go over there and take a look and see what the building needs. There are some big needs coming up in that fund. Based on the analysis that I did, again, preliminary, I just want finance to take another scrub at it. I'm kind of happy to say it's the numbers are still spitting out the way I thought they would 4 years ago. Different projects, different amounts, but the goal 4 years ago was to set a 10-year timeline to say there are certain years where we're going to be spending more money in that fund than we're going to be bringing in. But can we keep that fund balance all the way through that 10 years where it never goes below zero? Based on some of the changes that I saw from 4 years ago, in 2024, it looks like maybe it'll go negative by like $60,000, but the year after that, it goes back up to positive. So we're still kind of in that timeline. I want to make sure my numbers are right, but that's what I saw in the first blush.
I remember that presentation.
How many slides was?
Okay, Mayor, I guess I'm sort of I understand that we talked about December 15th, maybe the decision date, but I think it might be useful to look at something and discuss this December 1st. Because you have reminded me, Mayor, of some of the considerations we had when we were first approached back in, I think it was September, and it gives me pause about even the viability of a new contract.
Yes, ma'am, and that's, if council wishes, we can bring this item on December 1st, and then if we can't decide there, we still have December 15th to make the final decision. Because I think my numbers are good enough where we'll be ready to come back December 1st. It was just kind of too late to put something on the agenda.
Okay. Why don't we do that?
Almost like a first reading, second reading, you know, we thrash out some of the key issues and it informs or hopefully makes easier decision on the
Not to mention, sometimes answers create new questions that you can't answer that at that point in time, and we hate to rush through this. This is too important. Okay. I think that's our plan of action.
That's a good pinstripe right there.
Matt, do we need any changes to that letter?
So it's going to be December 15th, we will have a contract or we won't have a contract. Is that where we're at?
That's
Okay,
correct.
so that still meets the 31st deadline, which is what we have in the proposed basically amendment here. So we can, if you guys would go ahead and approve that by a motion, we're good.
Would anyone here in the audience care to speak to the item? There being none, back to council. Any questions, comments? There being none, the item is, we have a motion and a second on the floor for approval. Call the roll.
Councilmember Ford.
Yes.
Councilmember Tremont.
Yes.
Councilmember Stillman.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Bastian.
Yes.
Mayor Burnett.
Yes. 5-0. Item 19, Feral Cat Program Update.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council, Chief Tom Grimaldi again. As you know, we passed an ordinance June 16th of this year to tighten up the feral cat program. We took over the feral cat program as well in the police department with our animal control officers. Again, it was passed on the 16th. On the 17th, that very next morning, our ACOs and Lieutenant Tom Aiken spearheaded this approach for us and have been doing a wonderful job. I'm going to turn it over to Lieutenant Aiken for the presentation, and hopefully we can answer all your questions and give you an update on where we're at and where we're going.
Okay, thank you, Chief.
Good evening. I'm Lieutenant Tom Aiken, Port Orange PD. I'm going to pull up a presentation I have. So as Chief Grimaldi said, on June 16th, the ordinance was passed allowing the program to begin. We hit the ground running on June 17th. We did a lot of work in advance to prepare for that. So a little bit of history. The TNR program was previously managed by Concerned Citizens for Animal Welfare, CCFAW. The old colony caregiver list from CCFAW had 325 entries. Now CCFAW handled registering colony caregivers, arranging TNR surgery days, and assisting with trapping as needed. So again, on the 16th, you guys approved the adoption of the ordinance. Next morning, we hit the ground. So action is taken. City staff created the program's application, the program policy guide, program rules in advance so that we would be prepared on the morning of the 17th. Now after the program was enacted, we did make some modifications as time went along. They were very minor changes. So ACO Maxar, ACO Mankey, myself, and Officer Brissett, who was on light duty at the time, we reached out to each of the 325 entries on that list. It was a pretty daunting task, but we felt it was necessary to reach out to each one. there was information we needed from them. So in doing that, we found that that list from CCFAW was a little inaccurate as far as how many existing colonies there actually were. People were not removed from the list, even if the colony became dormant. And that was because they were left on so that if cats did show up again, they could just start getting assistance again. So that 325 was a little more than what there actually was. So we created application packets, which had all the aforementioned forms, and we provided those to anybody who wanted. We got them online on the PD's webpage, printed up hard copies for those folks who just wanted to come to the PD and get good old paper in their hand and actually look it over. So again, the Animal Control Unit's webpage was updated. Worked with James Hicks from the city's IT department. Did a bang-up job. We added all of our forms online. So especially given COVID-19, the more that we could do without people having to come into the PD is better. It's good business for us, and also keeps our residents safer. So as of today, we have received 46 applications. Of those, we have 41 that have been approved. Only 4 have been. Actually, I must have fat fingered that. Only 4 applications have been denied as of this point. 2 were in mobile home parks where the mobile home park said no way, no how. 1 was not even in our jurisdiction. It was out in I think it was a quiet place in the country.
Yeah.
It says Port Orange, but
Yeah.
we have no say out there. And then the 4th one, we just had not heard from the actual property owner, so we can't approve it until we get that. That was part of the rules we had in place. So this slide here was a screenshot for the training program we created, because that was something that was mandated as part of establishing the program. We wanted a training program in place, kind of similar to what was set up for the urban chicken program. So we knew that probably the bulk of the people who are going to be applying for the program were going to be experienced colony caregivers. So we weren't trying to insult anybody's intelligence, but we needed to make sure that we reiterated the rules of the program, what our intention was, what our expectations were, as well as provide other information. So I reached out to Brianna Lovell from Alley Cat Allies, because I found a webinar that they had was absolutely fantastic. It hit all the points we were looking for. So rather than having, say, a 4-hour class at the PD where we're going over this stuff, all that information is now available online. So in talking with Brianna Lovell, she was totally on board, allowed us to take that information. So again, working with our IT gurus, I took the basic format that Alley Cat Allies use. When you go to our webpage, when you go to the training section, explains that we have this training program that you have to complete within 6 months of becoming a colony caregiver. It'll direct you to this page. In order to view the training, you type in your first name, last name, and an email address. When you hit the submit button, it automatically sends an email to my ACOs, letting them know that John Smith with this email address is viewing your training program. So it's automatic documentation. So we're not having to have people come in exposing themselves to COVID and everything else. Yeah. So the total between the webinar, the recorded webinar from Alley Cat Allies, and it's preluded by a presentation from my animal control officers. Parks and Rec helped out with the videography for that. The whole thing was about an hour and a half. And as of right now, 17 of our colony caregivers have completed that training. So some expenditures we've had, we purchased 20 new cat traps. The total for that was $1,246.20. Our staff TNR hours worked from June 17th up until last Friday, November 13th. We've logged 411.09 hours for an average of 19.57 hours each week. The cost for those staff hours, which includes both ACOs, it was Officer Brissett. Some of those hours are mine. We've also got one of our community service officers. Anybody who has done anything for the TNR program, that includes running out, picking up a cat, making phone calls, contacting colony caregivers, we track all of that. So our staff expenditures for that was $6,776.19. To date, we've provided surgeries for 130 cats. It's $45 per cat. So that cost was $5,850 for a grand total of $13,872.39. Our TNR surgeries are back over at the Halifax Humane Society main facility on LPGA Boulevard. Originally started off at their Redinger clinic. They moved everything back over to the main facility after they revamped their surgery center. We get 3 appointments, or 3 days each week. We have appointments for 5 cats for each of those days. And right now that's working out to be a good number for us. Now, for comparison, CCFAW during that same time frame had 236 cats, and the cost for all those surgeries was $9,887. Now, TNR hours were not tracked in 2019 since our ACOs weren't involved in that program. Some of our results, we looked at the nuisance cat calls and how many cats were actually transported up to HHS during the same time frame from last year and this year. So June 2019, we have 47 calls, 34 cats went up to HHS. I don't know if you want me to go through all, or the whole point of PowerPoint presentations is not to read absolutely everything. So I don't want to regurgitate everything. But you'll notice for the June 2020, where we have 45 calls and 0 cats taken to HHS, during that time period, HHS was not accepting, they still were not accepting nuisance cats due to COVID. They changed their protocols, so we still were not able to bring cats up there. So that's why we got none listed there. And for the November 2020, we see 11 calls and 11 cats. It wasn't 1 cat per call. We're good, but we're not that good.
Okay.
One of those days, it was 8 cats. Someone called. They had said they found a bunch of friendly cats. It was 3 adults and 5 kittens. So we had 8 all at once.
Wow.
Some days went by. We got another call from somewhere else. We had 1 cat that day and then another cat another day. So that was not a 1-for-1 deal. So, but our totals, when you look at them, for 2019, you had 190 calls with 96 cats during this period going to HHS. And this year, we have 124 calls with 43 cats having been brought up for up to HHS.
Lieutenant, what do you
Yes, ma'am.
attribute? That's about a 1/3 rate. 1/3 of the calls you have cats. What do you attribute in 2020? Fewer number of cats. Is that because the population, there's already a goodly number that have been spayed or neutered?
It is quite possible. There's so many variables. I mean, it could be as simple as not as many people calling calling in to complain about them.
I gotcha.
Yeah, I was thinking COVID, possibly everybody's inside, nobody's
Right.
walking around, you know, it could be a
Right.
COVID stay inside, not seeing what's going on outside issue.
Yeah.
Um,
All right, so some of the impact on our ACO's duties, again, they're averaging about 19.57 hours a week devoted solely to TNR duties. We've issued 2 citations under the new ordinance. Our ACOs, as I mentioned before, we're tracking everything we do for this. So they've had 898 CAT entries for TNR work. We use an old header code, old nature code. Actually, we're the only one in the county that's using it now. So we use that specifically to track all of our TNR work, and that's the ANT call header. In addition to all their TNR work, they've also, between the 2 ACOs, handled 906 regular calls for service that they normally do. So all your bites, animal bites, dogs at large, we've done some search warrants, executed search warrants, dealing with hoarder houses, things like that. So all that, as well as assisting patrol officers at scenes, 906 additional calls just within that short amount of time.
Wow.
And having to handle all the TNR stuff. So where are we headed? So as we're moving through FY21, we're going to continue to expand and grow the TNR program. We're still open for business. People that want to have a colony or they have cats and they want to get registered, they just have to call us. We'll get them the packet, we'll get them the information and see if we can get them approved. Through our cooperative efforts with colony caregivers, we anticipate a continued decrease in the number of calls for nuisance cats as we can get them fixed and change their behaviors. And we're hoping, obviously, to reduce the overall number of cats that are being brought to HHS. We also want to consider implementing a return to field program in addition to the existing TNR program. There's a lot of work that goes into that, so we're not ready yet. We also want to examine staffing levels needed to maintain these level of services, because again, 906 calls in addition to all the hours for TNR.
Yeah.
It puts a strain on the staff. And we want to continue reducing the feral cat population via spay and neuter services all across the city. That's all I have.
Comments or questions, Scott?
No, great presentation, Lieutenant. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Drew?
Thanks, Lieutenant, appreciate it. Thanks for the update.
Chase?
Just one question, Lieutenant, and you may have gone over it, there's a lot of information there. We talked about eliminating the number of colonies. Where are we at in that? We have plenty more openings for people to have a colony? Are we having a cap of a certain amount that we're allowing? What do we do? How are we doing that?
I'm trying to remember exactly how many. I don't think we're anywhere near what our original
That's
cap,
all I needed to know.
cap
I think we were
was.
like 25 at one point, I think.
Yeah.
But
I think we were.
I know we had a
I think we were
discussion
little
on that,
higher.
whether or not that was final, I don't know, but.
Yeah, I think we're a little higher.
All right. There's a lot of numbers going around. All right,
So-
that's all I had. Thanks, Lieutenant. Great presentation, sir.
Marilyn?
I just want to compliment you and your staff. I know that my district, I've made a number of referrals, probably 3 or 4, and without exception, the residents feel that you have been very responsive. Haven't always solved the problem, and so what I would be looking for the next report is if there's a way we can get out information for neighbors of cat colonies, somehow educate them that even though we have the TNR, if there's a cat colony in the neighborhood, the good news is by having the cat spayed and neutered, at some point that colony should extinguish itself, but it's not going to solve the problem right away.
It's not a
And
quick
I know
thing.
you've provided some suggestions to residents so they can discourage a cat using their property and going over to the
Right.
feeder. I don't know if there's a way that maybe next time or in some of the things that Christine does, put out little tips to educate the public, because as responsive as you've been, I think it still is a source of frustration for the neighbors that end up with the community cats in their backyard.
Yeah, if I may, you bring up a great point. The TNR program is long-term, right? We're trying to fix a problem that's been around for a long time and probably will continue to be, but it's a long-term fix. We're talking short-term, and there's two different things here we have to work with. So we're always looking for those suggestions or ideas, and we found a couple recently that we put out to some of the residents. Sometimes they're accepted, sometimes not, but we will continue to try that, and we hear you on the short-term stuff.
Thank you.
We've had some really good input from our county caregivers. They like the way the program is managed. And if I may, I have a testimonial that was emailed today. If I may.
Go ahead.
Came from Chris Hotch. She's a county caregiver in the Sugar Grove colony. She wrote, "Hello, my name is Chris Hotch, and I have a colony of 7 beautiful cats here in Port Orange. I just love those kitties. So far, 4 of the 7 kitties have been saved. The city of Port Orange taking over the trap, neuter, and release program has been the best thing. Officer Jennifer Maxar, or she wasn't sure on ACO Menke's name, so she left it blank and asked for us to enter that for her. So, Officer Jennifer Maxar or Officer James Menke will drop off the trap to my house, then pick the trap up the next day with the cat inside, hopefully, then dropping the cage with Kitty off to the clinic for their surgery. Then they bring them back to the house with the cat and leave overnight. This is because the kitty will be kind of loopy after surgery. I will keep them in a cage and feed them in the cage, usually in my garage, until the next day when the officers come back to get the cage. And all that is not just for me, but for anyone else that has joined this wonderful program. It is a lot of work for the officers, and I appreciated them so much. Sometimes my cage will be empty when they pick up the trap, because I have one wise guy kitty that knows how not to trip the trap and take off with the bait, and she has in parenthesis, yummy drop of food. The females are finally getting fatter, and not from making babies, but rather from finally being able to eat for one. And of course, the boys are fattening up too. I just cannot say enough about this program and how much I appreciate our city for doing this for these beautiful creatures. Thank you so very much. Thank you.
Thanks for the time.
Any other comments or questions from us? I know we've got a few members of the public that want to speak on it.
Mayor, if I could just end it for us is sometimes we get those accolades, but it's really not solely us. I think you heard through the entire presentation all the other departments in the city that have been helpful, parks, IT. We've been going outside to get help from Alley Cats, our legal department. Everybody really has had their hands in on this and is part of the success so far. So I want to share that with everybody.
You cast a wide net, so
yeah,
sure.
so it's really the city's accolades.
And I think and I'll just say before we hear from the public, I think anytime you take on something new that we haven't done before, that it would be foolish of us to say that we know from the get-go everything that we need to know. There's always learning. There's always a chance to improve, and I think that if you're doing it now better than you did 3 months ago, then that's natural. That's great. If you come back a year from now and report that you're doing it better a year from now than you're doing it now, that's what we want to hear. This should be evolving. We should be looking at ways constantly. How do we do this better? And Tom, I appreciate you're taking this with both hands and going after it, because that's what it's going to take. And actually, maybe even 3 hands. Thank you. Edward Egan. Did he leave? I guess so. Darlene Kochendorfer. And Shira Weil. Where'd the others go?
Sarah Wild, 493 Leslie Drive, Port Orange. I'm glad you guys think this is a success. You're spending more money, you're having to pay more people and getting less cats fixed. You think you know what you're doing, you don't. It is mind-boggling. You are doing return to field. You are paying somebody to do the work that we were doing before under CCFAW. So I don't see how anybody could be happy. You're paying more, doing less, whatever. I still have the issue that my rescue alone, and there's 4 that I know of in Port Orange, has taken in and adopted out 400 cats and kittens from the city of Port Orange the same time that you guys did this TNR. All under our own dime, and we're helping you. We're helping your citizens, and I've stopped and spoken to ACOs. I see people trapping that weren't trapping before it was like an exclusive little group. Now people are doing it themselves, which is great. But Alley Cat Allies firmly believes rescues need to be part of the cat overpopulation problem, and you guys don't see that. But if someone could explain to me how you think it's better when you're spending more money and doing less, I would like to know. And unbelievable. And has anyone applied for grants to help pay for the TNR? Because there's lots of them out there. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else want to speak to it? Come on up.
I just want to say, because Cat Atwood, 872 Sugar Grove Court. Christine is across the street from me. And the work they've done with that cat colony has been fabulous because my property is affected by it. So that was a very good note that you made, Councilwoman. So we appreciate everything you're doing because we had a lot of cats. We've been in that house 6 years, and she was feeding them out of the kindness of her heart, and then that brought more cats, and that brought more families, and we were overrun, and we're across the street from her. So I just wanted to say I appreciate it. I think I was sad to see the program go away for a while. I was glad to see it come back, but she speaks very highly of your officers and the ones that she's had interaction with, just to the neighbors. So thank you for that. I appreciate that. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Mayor, I do have a question. I do have a question I forgot to ask.
But hold on just a second. Just want to make sure I
Oops,
did
sorry.
get everybody.
Yeah.
I did get everybody? Okay, go ahead.
I know one of the concerns that also prompted this was that we had rogue feeders in some of the, shopping centers.
Yeah.
Have you collected any data about that? Are you getting those type of complaints from store owners, particularly on the west side of the city? I think it was pretty big.
I'm not aware of any recent calls regarding rogue feeders, but I will certainly check with both my ACOs and see if they've received any that I'm not aware of.
Yeah, I think that would be useful to at least present the next time around, because I know that was one of the group business people that we were hearing from.
Right.
Thank you.
Yeah, the one right on Clyde Morris, right by Herbert Street.
Right.
We had a problem there with rogue feeding as well as over by Target, but I haven't heard any
Target,
information.
Panera. Yeah.
7-Eleven,
Yeah.
yeah,
7-Eleven.
down by Williamson.
Thanks.
Tom, you might as well stay put for a question, because I did have a follow-up question based on what Sheer mentioned. I know that we talked about it in the early going. Have we employed any grant writing? Or are we in the process of employing any grant writing?
Not as of yet. That is something I want to get into.
Here comes the chief.
So, good
Comes the
evening,
grant writer.
Chief Grimaldi. Yeah.
There's a grant writer right
We've been in
there.
touch with Amanda Lasecki, our city grant administrator. I forget her title, coordinator.
Yeah.
Amanda. And so she's looking for us, and yeah, that is something we're interested in. We're always interested in looking for grants anytime we can get them. So we do understand there are some grants, so we are looking to subsidize, I guess, the program with grants.
Be interesting to discuss the fruits of your labor when come budget time.
Hey, Chief, can you have somebody, Scott, have Amanda contact Shira? Have her contact Shira. I'm sure we have her phone number, and if she's aware of grants, I mean,
Yeah,
let's not
we'll
reinvent.
coordinate.
I've
and
got her phone number
flag
right
it.
here.
Perfect. So go through Robin's. Excellent. We will do that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions, council? Well, we have a bow on it. Item 20, approval of RFP for executive search firm for city manager recruitment. Planned obsolescence for the city manager in his effort to help find his replacement. Who's speaking to the item, Jake?
Alan Rosen.
Gee, how ironic.
No, Alan Rosen and Jamie, both. Sorry, I'm three under the bus there. It is
Jamie Miller, Administrative Services Director.
Hold on just a second, Jamie. I forgot to do something. The item on the floor is let's open it for discussion properly by getting a motion and a second for
Sure.
approval of the RFP.
Move to approve the scope of services and form contract as presented or as modified by the council, and to authorize staff to issue a request for proposals for an executive search firm for the recruitment and selection of a new city manager.
Second.
We have a motion, proper second. The item is now open on the floor for discussion, since I was jumping the gun a little bit.
Yes, absolutely. Jamie Miller, Administrative Services Director. The team has prepared a draft scope for your guys' review tonight. Tonight we're here just to elicit any feedback, and then we will make those modifications and hopefully release the RFP by the end of the week. So we've provided a couple of items for discussion and thoughts for you. In addition to those, some timing items I want you to consider, that we are headed into the holidays, so we may be asking you to get together during some difficult times in order to keep this moving forward as quickly as possible.
There's nothing difficult about the holidays.
Yes, so we're gonna sit back and take some notes on what you guys have for us tonight on the draft that we proposed, and then we're here to answer any questions.
I think the big question is getting the firm in here and hired so that they can help us. The question, we'll have of them to help us in forming what we want as far as our selection criteria. So that's not necessarily something, that part of it isn't for you tonight, but making sure that we have a high response rate. I know that we've got several local firms. We've got one national firm that works locally. I'm hoping that this RFP can cast the wide enough net to draw their attention. I've already received one phone call from one firm that was interested in when the RFP was going out. I have not responded to that, and I thought it would be improper if I did until after we discuss this as a whole. But comments, questions, council? Why don't we start with this end?
Okay. I was really impressed. I thought the draft scope did a really good job. The thing that I saw missing that needs to be added in under page 2, screening, the second to last bullet, conduct thorough references and background checks. The background check should include, but not be limited to, verification of educational background, criminal history, financial stability. We need to add in verification of claimed prior employment. Other than that, I would echo, although, Mayor, you thought it was premature, I think the timing question is important, because when this goes out, assuming, let's say it goes out Friday or Monday, you need to have, responses due by. So I do think we do need to discuss that today. Do we want to give 30 days for responses, whatever?
No, what I was referring to is the discussion with whoever it is we hire.
Okay, you lost me.
Yeah, I was talking about something else completely different.
Okay. Well,
Once we hire a firm, we'll have in-depth discussions about what we want out of a city manager, but the question right now is, yes, when are we gonna get it on the street?
But also we need to know how long we're gonna give
So just
people applicants to apply. What is the window they've got to
What's their
respond
time
by?
frame?
to give you some input on the how much time you're going to give the applicants, the search firm applicants, to reply to the RFP. There are there are two firms that reached out like the day after it was in the newspaper, and a total at my phone of 5 have reached out, and these are all the big ones that I see at ICMA conferences and have spoken to and have called me in the past about other things. So there's probably, Alan, 7 or 8 big ones or semi-big ones, but the ones that they all acquire talent nationally, but they're kind of region specific.
Gotcha.
There's one that does a lot of Texas and some Oklahoma and stuff like that. There's one that does Michigan and Wisconsin and all those, but every once in a while they drift down here. You got 2 that do a lot of Florida, and they're very local. So as far as the RFP, the second you put it out, 20 days later, you'll have something from them pretty quick, and you'll have a letter of intent or a letter of interest probably right away in somebody's inbox. As far as timing for them to get qualified candidates, fast and furious get you garbage in, garbage out. Slow get you, like I think Ken Parker told us, people delay to the last minute because they don't want their name out there. When I came here, I didn't care because my past employer had already booted me out the door. But as soon as your name gets out there, all it takes is somebody with if you Google my name, and I have my name in a Google alert, every time it's in the newspaper or in the news, it pops up in my inbox, and that's all it takes is a sharp mayor or a sharp elected to have their city manager's name in a Google alert for other reasons other than they're quitting. And as soon as their name goes into the Port Orange hopper, and oh, by the way, in Florida, I kind of mentioned this at the podium, your whole life is out there. I looked at every name of every person that applied in Port Orange with me. Didn't have time to go through the applications, but they were already there. They were all there for you to see. So you're exposing the good people, and that's why they wait to the end. But traditionally, I've seen it as short as 20 days, as long as 60. As long as 60 for the applicants, the actual city manager applicants. So those are the 2 timelines that you'll have to wrestle with. The one is for Jamie. How long do you want the RFP to be out there? And the other one is for whoever you hire. How long do you want the applicants to be out there? The end.
So I guess the question is if we approve this tonight, Jamie, when would the RFP hit the street, and how long would you want to leave it open?
If you'll allow me the patience of pulling up my laptop for just a moment.
Mayor, while she's doing that, if I can, so we heard a little bit about this the other night. Jake's mentioned it a couple of times. The reality of it is the organizations that are qualified to do this are salivating at this RFP to come out. They probably don't need more than a couple of days, but I really don't see there should be a need to go past December 11th. That gives them 3 full weeks. This is what they do for a living. We're not really recreating a wheel. We might have a couple of things in there, maybe not, that are a little bit unique, but they're things that they're pretty standard, and they're gonna see this and go, okay, hey, that's the deadline. So I would just echo my comments previously that every time we could shave off a week or 2, I think that helps get some, farther down the road, so that we can hopefully get somebody in here. My personal timeline is the sooner we can get someone here before we get into the weeds of the next budget cycle, the better that process is gonna go for us in 2021. So just my thought on that I kind of feel like December 11th, if Jamie, and I'm not pushing you, Jamie, you tell us, but if Jamie thinks she can launch this thing on Friday, December 11th is 3 full weeks, and of course, like Jake and everybody else has said, 7 or so were salivating, and they're proactively calling, going, where's it at, where's it at, where's it at?
Well,
So-
even if they want a reply, they still got
Right.
to have time to fulfill the requirements
Sure,
of the
sure.
RFP.
Yeah.
So thus, I think a salient question then becomes,
So we do want to be mindful because we do want to get good responses. One of the things that we did toy with is we had placed a hope to have somebody in place by May. We are concerned with having that in the RFP. While that's a desire for us, we don't want to limit our candidate pool. We did hear from Mr. Parker that would be an aggressive timeline. So staff did go back and forth with whether we include that timeline in the RFP. But as far as the RFP issue, we did have an opportunity to talk with purchasing of what could an aggressive but realistic timeline look like. And this is what we had come up with. So if we release the RFP by the end of the week, they would have until December 1st to ask questions. December 3rd, we would have our response to their questions, and then we would have the opening on December 10th. We anticipate then thereafter, if we needed to shortlist candidates, if we have 7 people respond, whether you guys want to interview 7 or you want to interview 3 firms, we would have to have a meeting to shortlist the candidates. We were anticipating that could happen December 15th around that meeting. I understand that gives you guys a lot to review in a short amount of time though, so I am seeking feedback from you guys if that's realistic for you. And then thereafter, we would need to schedule and conduct interviews, and we were anticipating if we would have a meeting on January 5th, which would be the first normal meeting in January we're not currently scheduled to have, to do interviews with the firms and possibly issue the approval to finalize the contract at that same special meeting. So that's the timeline that staff and I had kind of worked through.
that works for me. Anybody have a problem with that timeline?
I like it.
Nope.
I don't.
I think we have consensus.
Jamie, while we're on timeline, can we run that? So I think another big question that you've kind of framed up for this discussion is the selection date and whether we're going to build that into the RFP and the contract. Is there going to be a contractual provision saying, you know, the city council fully expects that the selection will be made by this date and that's a drop deadline, or is it going to be, you know, something a little bit softer where it's an expectation and that, you know, based on the circumstances it may go beyond that? We kind of need to know that from a contractual standpoint as well.
So the way we have it drafted in the scope before you tonight is a little softer. We asked them to provide a realistic but aggressive timeline in their proposal response, tell us how long it would need to take. One of the other factors we asked them to consider is based on what our citizen involvement looks like, how that impacts the timeline. Because if we're going to do a committee to develop the candidate profile, that's going to elongate items a little bit longer. So we expressed the desire to have somebody on by May 2021, but I wouldn't recommend that be a hard, fast timeline. I'd like to see what the RFP responses come in, but that's the pleasure of the council.
And some of that, to kind of wrap, well, at least in my mind, is once we do interview some of those firms, that's going to be one of my questions is, how quickly can you get us to where we need to be, and what would you be doing to try to shave off a week here, a week there, that type of a stuff? Because I do think that times have changed a little bit, even for organizations that do this, things that they're doing virtually and such may be already something that's already happening. So, you know, I'm willing to leave that a little bit loose right now, but they should all know that that's going to be a question from me is tell us how you would get us there sooner. You know, what would you do? What would that look like without us losing quality in the process? But, you know, and maybe that some of that involves, you know, unfortunately put maybe a little bit more on staff or on ourselves or what have you. But, you know, I want to hear from them on how they can do that, because I think that'll be important.
Yep. Comments or questions? Anyone?
Yeah, I mean, I'm okay with the little bit of the softer tone on line, but like one of the things that we can't compromise, obviously, is the thoroughness of the background check. So if they needed a few more days or whatever, to do that, you know, I'm not gonna beat them up over that, because that part has to, that's something that just can't, we can't, shorten the length or soften that approach. We can't do it.
And I'm not looking to do anything simply on the cheap, because you get what you pay for more often than
Correct.
not. I'm not looking to break the bank either, but I think that in this regard, that's the consideration is, what's it gonna take, bottom line, to get what we need. This is a small investment in our city's future and our future direction. So, you know, I don't consider cost a component of the equation so much as we'll see what the RFPs, the answers provide in that regard. I think it speaks for itself. If one is offering the same scope of services as another at a vastly different cost, those will create questions for us to ask those applicants as to what the wheres and the whys of their thoroughness, and we'll know then as well.
I think too, staff probably needs to know, and I mean, how involved are we dead set on having a citizen committee, and how involved are they gonna be, and when are they gonna be involved?
Mhm.
So we need to probably figure that out sooner rather than later.
I think that'll be another great thing to have the respondents of the RFP have a discussion with us, and maybe get some insight from them. They say, hey, if you do all that.
The people
you
who
may
do
be
this
looking
all
at
the time
a
can
lot
tell
more
us.
time or not, or whatever, so.
Let's hear from them about what works and what doesn't.
Mayor, if I may hit on one thing that you said tonight, and Scott, feel free to come up and correct me if I'm wrong, but as part of the RFP, one of the things we're required to do is outline how we will be scoring the successful candidate. So price currently is listed at 50% of that determining factor. That's something that obviously we can discuss tonight and make a change. We get to determine that up front. However, if price is not as high on the consideration list, I would recommend us make a revision to that in the scope tonight, so that when we publish the RFP, everybody understands what they're going to be selected on.
Jamie, I think cost shows 20%.
20, sorry. Yeah,
Experience
said more.
references at 50, proposed process development of
right.
the candidate profile 30%.
Then we got it right up front, so,
I
good
mean,
deal.
I'm okay with cost being 20%.
Yeah,
Is that much?
I was good with that.
Yeah.
Very good. Questions, concerns, council? What do you want to hear, Kier, to speak to the item?
Mayor, if I could.
Absolutely.
So can we just because we built it into the contract with that hard deadline of selection by May 31, 2021, can we just go ahead and authorize the city manager and city attorney to make some final cuts based on the direction that we're hearing here tonight, that can be kind of a flexible date? We like to include the contract in the RFP so that individual knows exactly what they're getting with the contract. So if we can make modification of that motion to give us that latitude to make a couple changes.
Drew, you want to modify your motion to that effect?
I do. I think a softer line on the selection date. I mean, I know budget season and everything is and that'll be here before we know it, but yeah, if that hard date is going to scare somebody away or preclude applicants, then I don't want to. I don't want to do that.
Okay.
So
And
here's another.
who was our second?
Scott.
Second.
Who was
And
the? Did you make the second?
I think it was.
Scott, do you want to
Oh, yeah,
modify
I
your
think
second in
it
that
was.
regard as well?
I'll modify that.
Okay.
Second.
Now we can discuss that modification.
Jake, did you have a thought?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, if I hate to throw the next city manager under the bus, but
Go ahead.
if he's worth his weight and he's that interested, he's gonna start being interested in the budget and watching like I did a couple months before he gets the job. He's
She
just
might.
not gonna know he gets the job, right?
How'd that work out for you?
So,
She
I got-
might.
believe me, I almost didn't come after watching a few meetings. Unique by choice. You didn't tell me what that meant. But yeah, they'll be in tune, and the people that do the grunt work and the budget are already here, right? You got Scott and his team and Alan and the department heads, so.
Anything else, council? Anybody
Robin
else?
has.
I can see you scratching your head there. Go ahead, Robin.
Well, we also have an addition from Councilmember Ford, so I was gonna suggest maybe just withdrawing those motions from the floor and start a new one with those two changes that y'all talked about.
Making it clean?
Making it super clean and easy for me.
I like
And you're
clean and
years
easy
later
for
in
you,
20
because the
years.
bottom line is execution. Would you like to
I
withdraw
I
your
will
motion?
withdraw my motion from the floor.
Scott?
Second withdrawn.
Go ahead, Drew.
Make a new motion to include the changes that we just discussed and make it right that way.
So that your original motion, along with the proposed change that Marilyn had and the proposed
Yes.
change that the city attorney had.
Yes,
That's your motion.
it is.
Okay. May I have a second?
Second.
Any other discussion? Call the roll.
Councilmember Ford.
Yes.
Councilmember Tremont.
Yes.
Councilmember Silver.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Bastian.
Yes.
Mayor Burnett.
Yes, 5-0. You know what you need to do. Additional items, city attorney.
I just want to give you a heads up, we are nearing the finish line for the panhandling ordinance, which will be a series of 3 special meetings, 2 of which will be testimony laden. So I will be reaching out to council through the clerk to start talking about when we can have those meetings here towards the end of the year. And we just have a couple odds and ends to finish up, but I wanted to give you that heads up.
Very good. City manager?
Yes, sir. In line with what Matt just said, I think you, maybe all of you, got a letter from Attorney Khan regarding Ashley Malone's services in GIS.
Yes.
To work on his project. There's a lot of things that our GIS department has done to give people a graphic representation of what's going on. Between what Melanie Schmotzer's done with the economic development scoreboard, where you can deep dive, and I know Scott Stiltner uses that a lot, to the things that Ashley and Craig and the GIS team have done up there for the Emergency Operations Center. The mayor puts out a spreadsheet with data on it for COVID. That data is real time on that EOC GIS board daily, updated as well in a graphic format with bar graphs by county, starting World and coming down to Port Orange. So they've done a phenomenal job on graphically depicting things going on, and they do more and more and more every day on that. So my hat's off to Ashley and the team, and I suggest anybody who's not familiar with what I'm talking about, please go to the website, go to the GIS page, and look at the things that we have already provided outward. It's not all available, but there's a lot there for you to look at, and a lot more for us internally to look at. Secondly, 'tis the season. I know some of you have seen some records requests, people asking staff and council for information. We have succeeded often, failed a time or two this year with public records as a organization. We would like for everybody, and I've already told the staff, but I remind the elected officials that if any request for information comes to you, just get it to Robin, and Robin will make sure it gets to the right person to get that information back to the citizen, and comply with public records requests. It just seems like Christmas is the season, and boy, with COVID, a lot of people have time to sit around and think about stuff, and we're seeing an influx, not only from the normal group of people that are always asking for information to try to find out what they need to find out, but there's a bunch of people that are asking generally too. So we try to treat everything requested of us like a public records request, knowing that some things are easy. Hey, do you have a copy of that thing that the mayor presented last night? We'll send that out in an email. Won't take the time to, but if somebody says, I am requesting we consider that a public records request. It goes into Robin's log, and she kind of tabulates and lets the city manager know at the end of the year how much time we're spending on public records, because it is a lot of time. And you know, so 99% of the time we get it right, but every once in a while there's a glitch. But we do spend a lot of time on it. So appreciate that, and that takes care of staff and elected. So that's all I have, sir.
Jake, I just wanted to add one more thing.
Yes, sir.
In regards to the Veterans Day ceremony last week, and I think Chase heard some of the same things. Please pass along my gratitude to Parks and Rec. It's amazing how quickly they set up an elaborate ceremony and break it down, but has also got a lot of feedback from the people there that are regulars at those ceremonies that we're grateful for the job that Parks and Rec does for them. So please pass that along to them.
I sure will. And the park looked great too. They really spruce it up and make it look good for that day. So I'll pass to them.
Thank you.
Jake, one more quick thing, if I can go back to your first
sir.
series of comments, and I truly appreciate you bringing that up, and it was, I'm glad we
The
didn't miss
public,
out.
public records?
No, the stuff that our GIS
oh, yes,
folks
sir.
are able to do.
Yes, sir.
You know, sometimes I think we take for granted that we have employees that have a really exceptional skill set that
Sure.
is not always what's actually in their job description. But it does give us opportunities to consider whether or not those are skills that we want to add into that job description when we see that having that skill is extremely beneficial for the position. Because I know there's been a lot of things, and just Melanie is not the only one in the city, but it just comes to mind that incredible skill set and a talent that I don't know that is what, it definitely exceeds my expectations, I guess is what I'm getting at. And so knowing that there's true savings, a lot of not having to outsource a lot of those things that cities like our size would normally be outsourcing, costing us a tremendous amount of money. I think we need to take a look at that, especially in the next coming year, to see that we need to change that job description title and be compensating accordingly for those skill sets. I mean, because if not, another city is going to do that, and they're going to change a job description, and those skill sets and things are going to be met there, and then we'll be back in a position where we're now outsourcing something where we had an opportunity to keep it in-house and save a lot of money. So
yes, sir.
I appreciate you mentioned that tonight, and I know we've talked
Yes,
about
sir.
that before.
We've actually, in a couple cases, we've provided a percentage above the wage to perform a duty. We had a Parks and Rec guy that did the state of the city.
Yeah.
We paid him for it.
Good.
Basically, those people, I've labeled those people, and I have a list of the people that go above and beyond and don't ask for anything and don't ever mention it. I call them opportunity scouts. They're always out there looking. Hey, I can do that, or that can be done. I got a friend that can do that, or I know somebody that knows how to do it. And those opportunity scouts are people that put forth the effort, and they have been noted, plucked out, and been provided additional challenges. And I believe Melanie Melanie just got a new job due to her hard work in community development. So that is another person that does well. David Hunt, Ashley, Craig, there's tons of them out there that just do phenomenal work, and they're the unsung heroes. But I have their names, and I will make sure before I leave that I thank them, and I'll hold a hug in abeyance until COVID's over, but I'll come back.
They sure made you look good.
They did, absolutely.
Council committee reports. Art House.
Okay. We did not have a board meeting today. Instead, we got a newsletter because we've been very busy. Last couple months when I've had to do my report, I've talked about Fun and Funky, the annual fundraiser, which this year was virtual. I'm happy to report it went extremely well. The page views were up 86% during the month of October. Post reach was up 156%. We still are a little bit behind budget, but what is so surprising is that the number of sponsors, and we also did virtual online auctions, the community response to that was so good that surprisingly we're at nearly the budget point we thought we would have been pre-COVID when we made our budget up last year, so that's great news. There is an opportunity for citizens to continue to support Art House through classes that are coming up that will be starting again in January. Remember, they're for school-aged as well as adults. They apply appropriate social distancing, sanitization, masks, but those are opportunities. And in fact, this Thursday they're going to have an exhibit of Halifax Art Festival student show. And they limit the number of people that can be in the art gallery. It will run from 5 to 7. It's open in the public. And for those of you looking for unique gifts, Art House on their website is going to be running a holiday-themed virtual auction. So it might be the opportunity for you to get a really wonderful art thing, whether it's a sculpture, whether it's a picture, for somebody that you know that would appreciate that and at the same time support Art House. So the good thing is they are holding on and they're holding their own, but they still need our support, so I would encourage you to help them with the virtual auction as well as classes coming up.
Excellent. First Step Shelter?
Just a quick update, and I can provide more details at another time, but the Safe Zone will be open officially, finally, November 23rd, I believe. That date, I didn't write that down, but that does, in essence, put us in compliance.
Next week.
And we finally get what we have paid for.
Is that the chief of police in the back of the room going, whew? Yeah, that's what I thought.
It gives, finally puts that tool in the box that we were promised. But it's been a long road to get there, but impressive work by our staff, because, you know, again, had we had this in house and not with Catholic Charities, this would have been implemented, you know, last year. But since it was not on their contract to do that, they were still going to, but it had to be within their particular requirements. And for those to have been met, there were a lot of hoops to climb for that. And it was a 5-year contract. We had no way of getting out of that until there became a mutual parting of the ways. So that opened up the door for us to expedite that. It still took 3 months, but that's because of the amount of planning that went into concrete poured, the almost $250,000 donated by one of our board members to construct the facility. So that added a lot of the time that we've been waiting on to get that.
Roseanne Tornatore that did that.
Roseanne Tornatore, yeah, phenomenal. Way to step up. So it will be up and running, and we will be officially in compliant.
Very good. Port Orange South Daytona Chamber of Commerce, they are still doing after hours virtually, and there's one this Thursday afternoon at 4 o'clock if you wish to participate. Thursday morning at 10, their Economic Development Committee is also meeting. The Roundtable of Elected Officials met for the first time, I believe since March, in person over in DeLand. And among the topics of discussion was a VOTRANS Transportation Development Plan update. We got an update on the 2020 census and the efforts that the county and the cities did to achieve compliance with that. And then the one thing that really caught my eye is we had somebody from the African American Association of Deltona do a presentation on the mental health accessibility for first responders. And right now, with everything that's going on in our cities and our counties and our country, I think that mental health in the age of COVID is relevant for everyone, but particularly these people that work hard to keep us safe, because they're doing more with less and under a lot of pressure with a lot less gratitude. So it's a relevant topic. And that concludes that. With that, our next meeting is December 1st. Drew, I think you and I have something to swear to that night.
I think so. Yes, we do.
But before we do, we're all going to go and have a COVID-friendly Thanksgiving, I hope, for everybody. I wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving, and we will see you all then. Have a good night, everybody.